So Jesus has just talked about how the new system, the new kingdom, would break the old. And so he said, this is why we don't fast, is because right now I'm the bridegroom. Okay, so while he is saying these things to them, behold, a ruler came and worshipped him, saying, my daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. So this is a synagogue ruler, we hear in other translations, and also Jairus, if you go and look in other accounts, like in Mark or Luke. And he comes, and in those Gospels, his daughter has not yet died, but here she has. So he is already coming with this knowledge. Again, who wrote first? What are they doing? These are important questions for scholars. We're not digging into all of that topic right now, but it is another one of those differences between these things. But the fact that he comes, and in this case it says worshipped or bowed down, it means that he's giving a lot of high honor, and he himself is an already honored person. And so you have a very honored person giving honor to Jesus, showing that he finds him to be quite important. And the fact that he's asking him to raise the dead, like, that's the kind of stuff that Elisha would do in the Old Testament, but very few people do this. Like, this is not a common thing. So, yeah, okay. So Jesus, of course, gets up and follows him, as did his disciples. Behold, a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years came behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, for she said to herself, if I just touch his garment, I'll be made well. And so, again, we have this idea, we talked about this last time, where you don't touch women because, you might get unclean because, they're bleeding and all that stuff. In this case, this woman has been bleeding for 12 years. She is a total outcast from society because she is unclean. And we also learn, again, from the other accounts, that she's spent all of her money. She's really tried to deal with this, and she can't. And so here she is, willing to press through a crowd and touch him because she believes that he's going to be able to heal her. I mean, that is some crazy act of faith right there, okay? Willing to contaminate everybody to get this thing. Make everybody unclean, okay? And so it says, Jesus, turning around and seeing her, said, daughter, cheer up. Your faith has made you well. And the woman was made well from that hour. And what's cool about this is that Jesus doesn't just heal her physically. He does that. But she also is kind of acknowledged as a person, as being healed, as being made whole. And so he also sets up her emotionally as well as socially. So he kind of addresses all of the things by turning around and addressing her, and not just letting it be like, okay, this cool secret thing that you had, you're good to go. He actually calls it out and makes it this public thing. Again, the other Gospels give a lot more details on this. What's going on with that? Something to think about. Okay, study more. Okay. When Jesus came to the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the crowd in noisy disorder, he said to them, make room, because the girl isn't dead, but sleeping. So these are the professional mourners, the people who are there to help people deal with grief. In America, we are not good with grief or death. We just don't. I don't know. We don't deal with it very well. And so in this culture, though, they're very big on you getting to get your cathartic experience and you get your emotions out and all that stuff. Plus, you're also in an area where bodies decay quickly, so we got to get on this fast. If somebody dies, it's time to get mourning because we don't got time to wait around. We can't put them on slabs of ice. We are rolling with this. And so you would have people prepared, ready to go before the person even died. And so it's entirely possible that they were gathering while Jairus is running to Jesus. Okay. And so they're already there and they are making a lot of noise because when you start mourning in this day and age, you had your professional mourners who would weep and wail to get you going, and they beat their breasts and they make a lot of noise. And so it is this, it truly is. See, it's interesting. This says disorder. It was orderly disorder. It wasn't this is chaos. It was that this is the way of dealing with grief and processing through it. But Jesus says she isn't dead. She's sleeping, which is clearly not true because she's dead. So they ridiculed him. But when the crowd was sent out, he entered in, took her by the hand, and the girl arose. The report of this went out into all the land because, this girl just came back from the dead, or she was sleeping, like he said. What? We know death. This isn't normal, right? Okay. But I also think it's interesting that Jesus sends out the crowd and then he goes in and he does the thing, because Jesus definitely has this mode of not being flashy. And I don't know. I feel like that might be instructive for us. who, we want to see God move. We want to see the power of God displayed. But if Jesus is our example here, he's not trying to make it flashy. And largely why this is happening, and we'll talk about this more in a moment, but like Jesus really wants people who are following him, not people who are following the amazing, the spectacle of this whole thing. He doesn't want that. Okay. As Jesus passed by there, 2 blind men followed him, calling out, saying, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." When he had come into the house, the blind men came to him. Jesus said to them, "Do you believe that I'm able to do this?" They told him, "Yes, Lord." So it's interesting because they're calling Son of David, which is a messianic term, but apparently healing wasn't a big part of the messianic profile for most Jewish people at this time. And I think that's interesting because we just read back a little bit that Matthew is clearly pulling this idea from Isaiah and being like, no, healing's part of this, but like he's drawing that out. He's kind of making that clearer that it wasn't always there. And so these 2 blind beggars are like, no, this is what we expect the Messiah to do. Come on, Messiah, come and heal us, all right? And then Jesus is like, do you believe that I'm able to do this? I don't know. They say, yes, Lord, because they were asking him. Like I don't know. I don't understand that. I think that's kind of funny. Okay. Then he touched their eyes and saying, according to your faith, be it done to you. Then their eyes were opened. Jesus strictly commanded them, saying, see that no one knows about this. But they went out and spread abroad his fame to all the land. So Jesus is trying to keep a low profile. Again, probably because he doesn't want giant crowds of gawkers. He wants disciples. In fact, as we talked about last time, he actually actively discouraged people from joining his disciple group. They're like, hey, Jesus, we want to follow you. And he's like, really? No, I don't think so. I don't think you're ready. I don't think you're up for that. And so that's interesting, right? That's interesting because, again, it's like, doesn't Jesus want everybody? Does he want everybody to follow him? He wants real followers, not just people who, find this fascinating or whatever. So that I think that's interesting. But still, he's still getting famous. All right. As they went out, behold, a mute man who was demon-possessed was brought to him. When the demon was cast out, the mute man spoke. The multitudes marveled, saying, nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel. Which is funny because Jesus just did this across the lake there with, demoniacs over there and all that stuff. But yeah, okay, not a lot of this is going on over here. But it's interesting because we do have a little bit of this, not much in Scripture. Apparently, David is one of the few only people who actually he plays his harp to calm down and kind of get rid of the spiritual oppression that Saul is under. But we don't have a lot of this in the Old Testament. But by now, in kind of this first century time period, there were people who had learned how to do stuff okay, they can manipulate stuff. And so typically what you would do if you needed to cast out a demon is you tried to get a hold of a more powerful supernatural entity. And then you would use that to try and push what you want, which actually ultimately makes things worse, which is why we have other verses about that. But here, Jesus just comes in and says, yeah, let's take care of it. But the Pharisees said, by the prince of demons, he casts out demons. And again, in the other gospel accounts, you have a little bit more about this Beelzebub, which, don't worry, Matthew's going to bring this up again, but hold on to that, because we're not going to get to it just yet, but we will. So Matthew knows about this. He's just truncating for some reason here. Okay, what's going on with that? Okay, but they say, oh, it's the demons, which actually is how other people who are driving out demons do this kind of thing, okay? That's how they do it. But Jesus says, nah, that's not how this is working. And if it really worked, if this is actually a way to drive out demons, then we'd be fighting, right? But again, you have to go to the other Gospels for that. But hold on to that Prince of Demons thing, okay? Jesus went about all the cities and the villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and every sickness among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them because they were harassed and scattered like sheep without a shepherd. All right, so I think this is really cool. We're going to go from here and click over to Ezekiel 34. And I'll just read a portion of this, but there's more. Go read the whole chapter. It's great, but let's start here. Yahweh's word came to me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. So these are kings and priests. Prophesy and tell them, even the shepherds, the Lord Yahweh says, woe to the shepherds of Israel who feed themselves. Shouldn't the shepherds feed the sheep? You eat the fat, you clothe yourself with wool, you kill the fatlings, but you don't feed the sheep. You haven't strengthened the diseased, you haven't healed that which was sick, you haven't bound up that which was broken, you haven't brought back that which was driven away, you haven't sought that which was lost, but you have ruled over them with force and with rigor. They were scattered because there was no shepherd. They became food for all the animals of the field, and they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and on every high hill. Yes, my sheep were scattered on all the surface of the earth. There was no one who searched or sought. And here we're mixing metaphors a little bit. So we've got this sheep thing going on, but then we also have this idea of being scattered on every hill. And that is, of course, referencing going to pagan gods, right? You're going to go start worshiping on every high hill and all that kind of stuff. And so there's kind of two things that are going on here with this imagery. But basically, this is saying, look, you have been destroying the people that you're supposed to be looking after. And you've been doing all this for your own good, but you're not doing it for their good. So what kind of good shepherd are you? Okay? Therefore, you shepherds, hear Yahweh's word. As I live, says the Lord Yahweh, surely because my sheep became a prey, and my sheep became food for all the animals of the field, because there was no shepherd, and my shepherds didn't search for my sheep, but the shepherds fed themselves and didn't feed my sheep. Therefore, you shepherds, hear Yahweh's word. The Lord Yahweh says, behold, I am against the shepherds. I will require my sheep at their hand and cause them to cease their feeding the sheep. The shepherds won't feed themselves anymore. I will deliver my sheep from their mouth, that they may not be food for them. For the Lord Yahweh says, behold, I myself, even I, will search for my sheep, and I will seek them out, as a shepherd seeks out his flock, in the day that he is among his sheep, and they are scattered abroad, so that I will seek out my sheep. I will deliver them out of all the places where they have been scattered, and in the cloudy and dark day. I will bring them out from the peoples and gather them from the countries, and I will bring them into their own land. I will feed them on the mountains of Israel, by the watercourses, and in all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them with good pasture, and their fold will be on the mountains of the height of Israel. There they will lie down in good fold. They will feed on fat pasture on the mountains of Israel. I myself will be their shepherd of my sheep, and I will cause them to lie down, says the Lord Yahweh. I will seek that which was lost and bring back that which was driven away, and I will bind up that which was broken, and I will strengthen that which was sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong. I will feed them in justice. Okay, so here is Jesus acting like Yahweh, the Lord himself. And so here Matthew is telling us, like, hey, this is Jesus' view, that he is acting as the Lord himself, saying, look, if you're not going to do the job that I gave you, I guess I'll go do it. All right? But then he said to his disciples, the harvest indeed is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray, therefore, that the Lord of the harvest would send out laborers into his harvest. Okay? So then, in chapter 10, oh, sorry, I scrolled. I don't know how I did that. Okay, chapter 10. He called himself his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal every disease and every sickness. Now the names of the 12 apostles are these. The first, Simon, who is called Peter, Andrew, his brother, James, the son of Zebedee, John, his brother, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, the tax collector, James, the son of Alphaeus, Lebbaeus, who is also called Thaddeus, that I know how to pronounce, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. So Jesus says, hey, ask God to send out laborers. And by the way, that's you. You're the ones who are going to do this. And then we have the names of them. And this list is different from the other Gospels because names are different. So it's entirely likely that people just had multiple names, and so we record those different names. In fact, we note that there's different names. That's how it happens. So that's likely what's going on. But here is another example where, they don't line up perfectly. That's okay. This is not new. Everybody knows about this. This is not some, whoa, you just discovered something. Everybody knows about this. And the general consensus seems to be that, they just had different names. Although it was interesting because one of my students was like, well, maybe they just, got replaced. And, well, we don't have any evidence of that, except for it is true that Judas actually does get replaced when he dies, right? So that's a whole thing that we'll get to maybe later. All right, okay. So Jesus sent these 12 out and commanded them, saying, "Don't go among the Gentiles, and don't enter into any city of the Samaritans. Rather, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." All right, so he sends out 12. And why is it 12? Because there are 12 tribes. Now, at this point in time in history, we're down to only 2 because we've lost the 10 tribes that were taken into exile and never came back. 2 tribes did, and so they're gone. But Jesus here, grabbing 12, is saying, nope, we're getting everybody back. The whole band's coming back together. We're getting all of them. We are going to get some from every group of the Israelites here. Okay, and right now he's saying, hey, we're not doing the Gentiles. We're not even doing Samaritans. Okay, we are focusing on the lost sheep of Israel. Okay, because again, he's going to be the shepherd here. Okay, and as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, and cast out demons. Freely you received, so freely give. All right, this one doesn't actually have raise the dead. Is that right here? Is that in this footnote? Yes. Okay. Yeah. The other versions have raise the dead there. That's what that footnote says. Okay. So what we have is this command of like, hey, I've just been doing this stuff. I just demoed all of this. Now it's your turn. I've given you authority to do it. Go do it. And this is not the typical ministry stuff that I hear about, like, hey, you went to school or whatever. But I have heard that there are actually places, I believe in India, where there are certain schools that are like, hey, if you want to go be a pastor, you need to go do all of these things. So you need to come back and have proof that you raised somebody from the dead. And then you can graduate from the program. That is hardcore. That's outside my grid. Like that's my schema does not hold that really. Like again, it's possible, right? Like I'm reading the Bible. Like this is here, but like that's intense, right? Like that is not common in the Old Testament. And then okay, well here we gotta go do it, okay? And you've got it, so let's make it happen. That is crazy, and I wonder if I am not operating in enough faith on this one. Like I'm not operating the authority that God has given us in bringing the kingdom and giving us that. So I don't know, something to challenge myself on. If you feel challenged, may you walk in the power of the Spirit. Like, let's have that. Okay. Don't take any gold, silver, or brass in your money belts. Take no bag or for your journey, neither 2 coats, nor sandals, nor staff, for the laborer is worthy of his food. Into whatever city or village you enter, find out who is worthy and stay there until you go on. As you enter into the household, greet it. If the household is worthy, let your peace come on it. If it isn't worthy, then let your peace return to you. So hospitality, we've talked about this before, but hospitality is super important in the ancient Near East, in the East today, but also in here with these groups. It's like, if you're coming through, then people's job is to take you in. We've talked about this in lots of different videos. And so their expectation is, okay, these people of Israel, they're going to take care of me. It's going to happen. And I've got important things to do. And so I'm going to be taken care of, which also shows that God is going to take care of them, which fits with what Jesus has been teaching already. You don't need to worry about anything. You're good to go. Just make this happen. Okay. And then he has this thing about going into a house and giving it your blessing and then letting your peace come back to you. So the blessing, of course, is shalom, which is a greeting. It means peace. It also then is a blessing or a prayer or a wish for people. Like, hey, may you experience peace as well. And I guess one of the questions of the day was like, but what if the person doesn't deserve peace? What should you do? Should you actually say this? What's the right way of doing it? What's proper decor? And Jesus kind of says, well, you always give people peace. And if they don't deserve the peace, then you can just let it come back to you. Like, you don't need to worry about it. Like, okay, cool, I'll take it back. However, whoever doesn't receive you or hear your words as you go out of that house or that city, shake the dust off your feet. So we do not have in America, at least, much in this like geographical, supernatural view of things. Yeah, we've got borders, but like you don't like leave one state and like clean off your tires or whatever. But in the ancient Near East, if you traveled to a pagan part of the world, right, and then you're coming back, you do not want to contaminate that part of the world. Contamination is the problem. We don't want to deal with that. So you clean off your sandals, you get the dust off, that bad dust, that pagan dust off of you, and you would go forward with, hey, here, we got the nice stuff here. Okay, so now walking into it. But Jesus isn't talking about going into pagan lands. He has just specifically told them that we're not going to Gentiles or the Samaritans. This is Israel. So he's saying, look, if people don't accept this, then they're basically worse than pagans. Like treat them like pagans, because they're not accepting the kingdom of God. In fact, he says, most certainly I tell you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. And of course, Sodom and Gomorrah, it's supernaturally nuked, right? Like that is the bad city. The place where they were not welcoming to foreigners, where they were not good, where angels showed up and they did not accept it. They were evil to the core, all of that stuff. And now here Jesus is, and he's like, yeah, those people, they'll get off easier. They'll get off easier than, than these cities in Israel who reject Jesus. All right, we have to stop there for today, but we'll jump in more as we go forward. Thanks for tuning in, and if you have any questions or thoughts, things that you've heard, whatever, please leave those down below, and let's continue to learn more together.